Hi there. In the previous videos, we looked at how we can test references and basic values like strings and numbers. In this video, we will explore how we can test for exceptions being thrown in our code, because sometimes we actually want to throw expected exceptions, so it would be good also to know how we can test those. Alright, let's begin. So let's start by introducing a new method in our script file, where we simply have something like sub, and let's name it throws. And all we're going to do here is just going to die. Let's say something like this is the end of the world. Alright, so we have a simple method that simply dies, aka throws exception. Now how do we test that when we call this method, the exception was thrown as expected? Well, what we can use is a method which is throws underscore OK, curly brackets, and then in these curly brackets you provide a logic that you expect to throw an exception. For example, we have our method which is called throws, so we can just call that. So throws. And the second parameter which you can provide is a regex pattern to test that the thrown exception contains the expected message. For example, our message in this case is this is the end of the world. So we can copy that. Let's go back to the test. Let's put this into quote regex. And the third parameter, as usually, is a message that describes your test. And we can just say throws and OK. Alright, so if we save this and we type prove t and or test name and run this, we're going to see the test pass. If we change this message slightly, let's say I do not expect this failure. We save that and run our test. Now the test does not pass. We were expecting I do not expect this failure, and our method actually threw this is the end of the world. And also, of course, so if you revert back to expected message, method throws, save the file, just rerun to make sure that it works as expected, and that all looks good. And now let's say that we don't want to actually die, we just want to return a truthy value such as return 1. Now if we rerun our test, we're going to see that our test now fails, because we're expecting that our method is going to throw, but it doesn't, because it just simply returns number 1. Now the alternative what you can use is a keyword which is called dies. Okay. And dies OK simply checks that your method threw an exception. It doesn't really care what is the message. So if we amend our script and let's revert back to where we throw this is the end of the world, go back to our test, and now we don't want to provide the pattern that we're looking for. We just care that it dies in general and rerun the test, and this is fine. Now, what if you actually wanted to test the alternative scenario? A method actually doesn't throw an exception and it works as expected, but you don't really care about the value. So in that case, you can use lives. Okay, let's change the message to all is good. Save that, run the test. This is going to fail, of course, because we're throwing exception. And if you go to the script and let's reintroduce just returning 1, so truthy value, rerun the test. Now this is all fine. So again, we don't really care about the values of our code, but as long as it didn't throw an exception, we're happy with that. Alternatively, if you did actually care about the value returned from the test that checks that your method didn't throw anything, what you can use is a keyword which is lives and inside the curly brackets you can provide after the method the value that you expect and a keyword is. So if we run this, our test is going to pass, because our method doesn't throw and we're also expecting for value 1. However, if we return, for example, value 2 and rerun the test is going to fail, because now our method does not throw. However, the return value is not the expected number 1. We're actually now returning number 2. And this is just really a shorthand for using lives OK and then writing out the is, the same method name, testing for value, and so on. But if you don't care about the return value, you can just use the lives OK. Alright, that's it for this video. We looked at how we can test exceptions, or we simply want to test if our method throws an exception, and we also looked at how we can make sure that our method actually doesn't throw an exception, and also a shorthand of how we can test the value being returned. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you at the next one.